I thank you very much for tuning in to That Will Never Work podcast. Climbing the corporate ladder used to be the dream, but what if your next level of purpose requires you to step off? Today, Adam, he's going to join me. We're going to unpack the powerful shift from executive life to leadership impact. We'll talk about it right after this.
Educate, empower, enable, impact. Thank you for tuning in to That Will Never Work, an award-winning podcast where we share inspiring information and personal experiences related to business and the entrepreneurial journey from those who are leaders in their respective field. Now, here's your host, author and business coach, Maurice.
I thank you very much for tuning in. We have Adam. Now, this is going to be fun because there's a whole lot of information that we need to cover today.
Let's do it.
So, Adam.
Yeah, man.
What if true leadership isn't about how high you rise, but how deeply you help others grow? Is that true?
Oh, I think it for sure is. I think one of the biggest mistakes that we have made in the corporate world is to attach the concept of leadership to titles and to give the impression almost that progression up the ladder naturally comes with leadership talent. Like, you know, I'm a line manager, and so they give me this like set of skills and this tool belt, and then when I get promoted, they're going to give me a new set of skills and a new tool belt, and you know that all that's kind of given to you as you progress. One, I think that's an issue, but two, we have kind of often fallen for the mistake of thinking that leadership is about level, as opposed to realizing that the most effective, the most high performing teams expect everyone to lead, whether or not they have an actual reporting relationship with anyone or not.
And it's interesting that you say that, because a lot of times when we're in that corporate space, our managers say, hey, you know what, be like me. Take on my characteristics, take on my traits, and I'll show you the path. We're going to go down this golden brick road together, right? And sometimes we're led that way to emulate somebody else. So should we stay ourselves in that space, or should we really take on that mantra of someone else?
That's one of the hardest parts of growing as a leader is figuring out your one true self, how to be true to that. Because I do believe that authenticity is a very real part of growing and becoming a leader. And authenticity is a key aspect in developing trust, which trust is what I've found all my work in. But with that, we have to be careful, because sometimes we can give the idea that when Maurice, we want you to be your true, authentic self, that we give the idea that means that we don't expect you to grow or change. And really, we need to balance these ideas of, well, I'm just true to who I am, versus you have to change to be like someone else.
Right.
That we really need to embrace the idea that as I grow and as we grow our people, there should naturally be some change and some development and maturity almost. It shouldn't be becoming someone else. It should be becoming the next version of who you are, and getting really comfortable with being true to who you are, while also identifying the parts of you that may need improvement and growth and development.
So you talk about being yourself.
Yeah.
There's another word you use about mature, the word mature. I'm going to play off of that for a moment. So for those of you who wants to know anything about Adam, you can go and read his bio anywhere, listen to him. But there's something in his bio that talks about he's the Paw Patrol. he understands Paw Patrol now, and I had to look up Paw Patrol and understand what some of the lessons that we can learn from leadership perspective of Paw Patrol.
That's funny. Yeah. So full context for listeners, I've got a lot of kids. My oldest is 16. My youngest is 3. My 3 younger kids, what in our family we often refer to as the littles, Paw Patrol is one of their favorite TV shows.
Right.
And it is interesting. I end up watching a lot of Paw Patrol. If called on, I can sing the theme song if we need to have that sort of action. Um, but it's interesting because there are interesting leadership aspects embedded within this kids show,
Right.
and one of them is one thing I love about the show. This is so funny to talk about that they don't use every person. They don't use every pup in every episode, right? Depending on which. I mean, that show's hugely successful, 20, 25 or seasons. So there's like different numbers of pups in there.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the really cool things is not everybody gets a seat on the bus every time. Not everyone's a starter every single time. And so,
Right.
Part of the role is the guy who's the leader, his name's Ryder.
Mm-hmm.
He, at one point, he says like, hey, here are the pups that I need. And sometimes it's all of them. And sometimes it's no, like we have this water thing, so we need Zuma, the pup with the water skills or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really like that idea that landing that everyone is valuable, but that doesn't mean that everyone is needed in every single scenario. And they really land that almost very subtly. But yeah, I think there's tons of cool little learning things we can see in there.
And just using your analogy, see, as a leader, we're supposed to understand the strengths and weaknesses of each and every one of our people that we're leading, right? Also understanding what is our own personal strengths and weaknesses, where we have those people that's on our team that can help supplement that. But so now in that though, how do we diffuse our ego? Because sometimes our ego gets in the way of that. So how do we let that go just a little bit so we understand that we are building this team where we're helping to fill in some of those holes?
Yeah. So, and we have to help do that for ourselves and for our teams, right? Mm-hmm. An example of that is lots of cultures establish value of team members based on a very competitive structure, and they believe and they have the idea that we need to drive competition amongst our team members in order to get the best out of them. I'm a big believer in competition. I'm certainly a free market economics guy, all that. But I do believe that culturally within teams, one of the ways that we model what we believe in is, do we reward people for making the team better, or do we reward people for showing out themselves? Mm-hmm. And the healthiest organizations incentivize and reward team supportive behavior as opposed to self-supportive behavior. One of my first leaders, he gave this great example. He went to West Point. Okay. And some folks between their senior year of high school and their first year at West Point, they do what's called a finishing school. It's kind of like an old school idea, but a finishing school, it's like they get a 13th year, like instead of 12th grade, they have a 13th or a second senior year. And the goal is to brush up on some skills for them. Often involves some physical training, kind of prepares them for West Point a little bit. So he ended up doing one of those finishing schools. Well, he gets to West Point, and he has more than average knowledge versus the other freshmen, because essentially he had a year of education that was how to march, how to keep your foot locker. Like, he'd been in a military school for a year. And in one of his first locker reviews, where they go through and they check everyone's bunk and make sure they're all squared away, his stuff was perfect. And he got in trouble with the guy who was, I don't think it's their drill sergeant, but whatever it is at West Point. He got in trouble. He got written up effectively and dressed down. And when he probed, like, hey, I thought I had all my stuff ship shape. Why is this a problem? The feedback he got was, yeah, but the guys on both sides of you, they didn't have the same knowledge that you did, and they were a mess. And it was evident that you didn't help them. And so he was one of my first leaders. And I just remember kind of trying to embrace that idea of, you can rise and fall on your own merits, but you can also rise and fall based on how you at least attempt to help others. which I know your religious background, Galatians 6 talks a lot about that and bearing one another's burdens.
Mm-hmm.
We're called to support one another. That doesn't relieve our own individual accountability, but it does add some accountability for my brother on both sides of me in a religious context, in a family context, and in a work context.
And I think that's interesting because in this culture right now, you get this me first mentality. And it's not until you work in a team. So, for an example, with my corporate background being most of it being in customer service, we
Mm.
were a team. We had to work together, um, and ensuring that the next person they're handling calls effectively as the other person, all those type of things. So sometimes, and even with that, our bonuses were attached to each other.
Yeah.
And sometimes we don't understand that. We like you, as you stated, we're more worried about the me first, let me get this award or whatever it is, not understanding that we all can win together, even though, but understand you're bringing everybody else to the same level of excellency as yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that's the hard thing that we see, especially in social media, that hey, everything is like me, 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 me.
Yeah, and one of the ways I talk to teams about that in terms of culture development when I work with them is there are a whole lots of teams that when they put together a whole bunch of really strong A players,
Mm-hmm.
they actually end up with something like less than the sum of its parts. That team is actually generating less than it should because even though they have all really strong players, they're all really strong individual players.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had the most success in the teams that I've built of having a few really strong A players, but having mostly like what I'll call B plus players on the field.
Mm-hmm.
But every single person wanted to help each other succeed and be better. And they ran freaking circles around the only hypo talent teams because they had a mindset that was, hey, we're never going to let the ball drop. Hey,
Mm-hmm.
we're always going to look out for each other. We're going to get through this together. And they filled the cracks between them. They made sure no space was lost.
Mm-hmm.
And they embraced the idea that if someone says, "Oh, hey, I thought Bob was taking that,"
Mm-hmm.
that that's not Bob's fault necessarily. It doesn't reflect poorly on Bob. It reflects poorly on the whole team,
Right.
as opposed to individual performance mentality, which is, well, that was Bob's accountability, so I didn't pay any attention to it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay, but like you had exposure, you had information, you could see that Bob was drowning, or you could tell he wasn't working on it. Like, did you do anything to help?
Right.
And yeah, I would take a team of highly motivated, highly team oriented individuals that were maybe less strong than having a team of all hypos that were lone wolfing it the whole time.
Yeah, and I think that's again just based off of the team that I was in. A lot of times we were because we felt as though we had it, we can make it happen. That sometimes we drop the ball,
Mm-hmm.
because of that, because we had that. All right, I'm going to go up because our numbers we had to get 92% accuracy, and so when we got to that 92%, we're like, all right, I got it, but not necessarily worried about the next person in that space. But because everyone was doing that, and then when you get one person that comes in, that now they're hey, I'm doing it. Now I'm going to slack off a little bit because I've been averaging this or I've been doing that. Well, sometimes that doesn't work with the team. That
Yeah.
hurts us in the long run. Because now you're dropping the ball, and are we constantly going to look at the mark? It's almost like when you take a look at any of the sports teams, like a LeBron or a Tom Brady or whatever else. Some people expect to make it to the playoffs every single year, no matter what the situation is. But it's about the team. It's not about that one person.
Right.
And I think that's some of the things that we don't always consider is the team is as important as everybody else. I mean, as you as the individual.
Right. Yeah. I mean, ultimately, there are no teams that can rely on just one person to win. I mean,
Right.
you can even go back and look at the Bulls. Jordan didn't do it on his own.
He
You
did.
know, he had other guys on the court, and even if they were just getting him the ball,
Mm-hmm.
he couldn't have done what he did, or the team couldn't have done what they did if no one was there to help him have the ball to put in the basket, right?
Right.
And so I think as you kind of go back to your question, which is like, how do we help people see past the ego that can distract there?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of my topics are about trust and the composition of trust within a team.
Mm-hmm.
And what I find is one of the three things that leads to high trust teams is what I call alignment. And alignment is a combination of a couple things, but think of it as one of them is the alignment between words and actions. And so lots of leaders will say one thing and they mean it. They really do mean it.
Mm-hmm.
But then when the rubber hits the road, things get bad, things get hard, there's stress, C-level people are firing off emails in the middle of the night. All those good intentions, sometimes go out the window. And you can tell a lot about the level of trust in a team as to how they respond to stress and fear.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a connection frequently between stress and fear and ego,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm afraid that I am going to use like an Asian term, I'm going to lose face in front of my leadership team or whatever. And so that has a direct connection to ego.
Mm-hmm.
And how do I, as a leader, absorb the body blows that are going to come towards me and my team when something goes wrong? Or am I going to immediately filter all that stress, all that adrenaline directly into the team? Or am I going to protect them? Am I going to stand between them and the leadership? Am I going to try to save my ego and put one of them up and crucify them in a way? And until a leader can embrace the idea that it is their job to take credit for failure, it's their job to take credit for failure and to give credit for success, they'll never get everything they can from their team until they embrace that dual concept.
And I think that's important because a lot of times the team will feed off of that. It's because your leader now looks like as if they are a part of you, they're not above, and they'll respect you in that leadership role because now you have taken the bullets, right? You have taken the beating or whatever, but you've also, like you said, uplifted someone else. Because now they're like, all right, well, if he did that for me, if he did that for him, he could do that for me. So now everyone they want to work harder to reach the goal. But I think sometimes though, I'm gonna be honest with you, that word trust is major.
Yeah, man. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Because we can't sometimes because of our community, wherever we might have grown up in, our childhood background or whatever it is, some of us who didn't watch Paw Patrol don't understand what the word trust really means, because we didn't see it, and so now we're adults and we're trying to build on something that is not really part of our makeup.
Yeah, no, I agree with you completely. I mentioned I have quite a few kids. My youngest 3 children are adopted, and that's had a huge impact on me as a father, of course, but it's impacted some other things in my life. And one of them has been a shifting belief in the idea and concept of trauma. And as a part of adoption, we've learned a lot about trauma situations. But what that opened my eyes up to professionally as I was growing in that way and in a leadership team in the same way, was the frequency with which people have some sort of workplace trauma that impacts them. And that can be true, like real trauma. And I'm going to say real trauma as in real physical, mental harm that was done to them, potentially outside the workplace. But I think we may ignore sometimes the amount of trauma, even at a lower level, that people face in the workplace. And so part of our role as leaders is, for example, look at how does your team react. So I'll give an example. You've got a team member that you're frustrated because they copy you on every single email. They don't send an email without CCing you. And your first response is, Adam, will you just stop it? Like, I don't need another email. Well, what you're going to find often when you go like scratch that issue a little bit is they had some leader in their past who did them harm based on not having full visibility, or the leader got mad for some reason. And because of that, they developed this defense mechanism that is, I'm just going to, anytime I have anything that could approach bad news, I'm going to copy.
CYA.
That's exactly right. And often as leaders, we fall into the trap of addressing the symptom. The symptom is they CC me on every email. Or the symptom is what I sometimes talk to my teams about, the power I formation, right? You bring the senior director, the senior manager, and the manager, and they're all in the same freaking meeting, as if you need 4 layers of leadership to do this. Well, that happens because people don't have faith and trust that if something goes off the rails, that everything's gonna work out okay. And so they go into defense mode, and their CYA is sending 10 times more emails than they need to, or having meetings with 3 times more people, or you can kind of keep building that out. And we can keep telling people, hey, you don't need to do that. But until we actually spend some time to identify the root of whatever caused their pain or trauma or issue that's leading to that defense, we're never going to solve the problem. And so part of being a great leader is seeing those behaviors and taking the time to be empathetic and care about your people enough to find out why they're doing that. And then, as a part of that, embracing the idea that I as a leader need to set aside my ego and listen for the feedback that might be that I'm the one who caused that trauma. I may be the leader who got mad. I may be the leader who kind of asked, well, why did that meeting happen and I wasn't there? We always want to blame it on the guy before,
right?
But part of growing in our trust with our teams is being empathetic enough to recognize that, and authentic enough to recognize that I may be the problem. And how am I going to develop a strong enough relationship with my team that they'll be able to tell me that?
Adam, first of all, I'm going to say this. I think that's a mic drop. So because I'm going to say this, and I thank you very much for coming on the show. Where can someone talk to you and find you? Where if I have a problem with taking responsibility, accountability for how I have affected not just an individual, but possibly the team as a whole. Where can I find you and talk to you about something like that? Because I struggle with that in my organization, my 9 to 5, whatever it might be.
Yeah. The easiest thing is my LinkedIn. Look me up, Adam Malone. My actual URL on LinkedIn is Adam Malone Speaks. You see a pudgy white guy with a microphone and a beard and a black and white photo. It's probably me. Hit me up on there. I accept every connection request, every friend request. I'd be happy to talk to people in the DMs or over email or whatever. Because I believe that the world needs more great leaders. I think you might have heard me say that phrase a couple times. If you're on my LinkedIn, that's a capitalized proper term, great leaders. It's a thing. I believe that we need more great leaders, and that for the solution to most of our problems in our families, our communities, our churches, our government, our society as a whole, is that we don't have enough people that are willing to do the hard work to be great leaders. And so my passion, my calling is to use the mechanism of trust to help develop more great leaders in the world. And so whatever I can do to help people, I'm always willing to do.
So I just want y'all to know that he's telling the truth. Like that's all I hear about is leadership. Because like I said, I listened to some other episodes. I heard some little snippets here and there, and I appreciate you, Adam. Because there's a lot of things that if people don't know who you are, I think you're a great role model, and you've shown
Oh,
what leadership can really show.
that's
I
kind.
appreciate that, Adam.
Thanks, man.
But Adam, before you go, man, I gotta ask you the question.
All right, ask me.
My would you rather question.
Okay.
Now, because you live in Nashville, I might have another question for you, but we'll see.
We can do two.
All right. So, Adam, would you rather choose 3 doors or a fork in the road?
Fork in the road.
And why a fork?
Well, there's a mistake in our culture that we believe that more choice always leads to more happiness. So that is statistically a lie. Researchers have shown that actually above about 4 or 5 choices, increased choice actually leads to less gratefulness and less pleasure with your decision. And so I, in my life, seek to do things that reduce the number of choices I have.
Okay.
So that in each of those choices, I have more faith and more, less should I have taken the other options sort of debate. And so the 3 doors versus a fork in the road, if I can, I'm always going to try to go to a fork in the road, just so I can do a better job considering the difference between them. You have a third fewer options. You got a third fewer variables you got to consider to make a great decision. And making great decisions is what makes for everything being great.
Yeah. For myself, I think I will always answer the fork in the road because it makes me stand on my decision. Because I don't want the shoulda, coulda, woulda. I wish I could have mentality.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm gonna go left. I'm gonna go left. Plus, I'm gonna go back to video game mentality. That was always my road when I played the video game Outrun. Always went
Okay.
left.
Always went left. Hey, man, it makes it easy to make that decision.
Right. So I go back to my childhood.
That's like when I'm helping people think about performance management systems for their team, I often encourage people to use a 4-point scale and not a 5-point scale.
Okay.
And the reason is because so many people want to choose 3. They want to choose the middle option, which is just non-committal. And so when you go to 4, you're like, no, you're like, you have to commit. You have to decide. You're either going to say 3, this person's above average, or 2, this person's below average. But you don't get to choose average. You gotta take a stand on one side or the other at least.
Right.
That kind of same idea of like, you got to own that decision a little bit. You can't take this like mealy mouthed out of average. No, they're not. Nobody's average.
No. Well,
there is an average, but no one's average.
But sometimes we play down to that.
Yeah.
For whatever reason. So that way we won't be held accountable for that decision.
Yeah, that's right. All right. So you got to ask me the second question, the Nashville question.
Yeah, that's what I was going to get at. So because you are in Nashville, and I asked this question on the No Fruit podcast with my wife. It's a fun question. If you could choose to sing a duet with anyone in the world, dead or alive,
oh man. So I'm not certain. So I do love to sing. I do sing. I'm not a great singer. But the group the duet I love listening to the most these days is Drew and Ellie Holcomb. They have an album called Memory Bank, which is fantastic. So that's who the duet I would probably choose to listen to. And while I would love to sing with Ellie, I'm pretty certain my wife would be unhappy for me to do that. So
let's not do that.
Yeah. So, I'm a good Nashville boy. I grew up north of town. The Shoney's in Hendersonville near me. You used to be able to go and see Johnny Cash every couple of days. Like he was there all the time. So I don't know. I kind of probably have to go with good old Mr. Cash.
Nice.
I'd love to sing some Walk the Line with him or Ring of Fire.
Okay.
Be great.
Nice. Good choice.
Yeah, man.
I appreciate that, man. But I thank you for being a good sport for answering both of the questions, though.
My pleasure.
No problem, man. And of course, everyone, thank y'all very much for listening to That Will Never Work podcast. And all of Adam's information will be in the show notes. And we'll talk to you just a little bit later.
Thanks for listening. Follow Maurice Chism on social media to stay connected and check back weekly for new episodes. Until next time, that will never work. Or will